The first snow of November had come early that year, dusting the high desert like sifted flour over burnt clay. Elias McCrae woke before dawn, as he always did, the silence of his small ranch cutting sharper than any wind outside. Years had built a slow solitude around him, years and the weight of things he preferred not to name. His horse, Juniper, snorted as he saddled her, the breath rising in pale ghosts. He started out toward the north pasture, riding along the dry wash that shielded what little graze he had left. The sky was a heavy gray lid, and he welcomed it. Gray mornings felt honest, they hid nothing. He saw the shape before he understood it, something dangling from the twisted limb of a cottonwood that clung stubbornly to the bank. Juniper halted on her own, ears pinned, body rigid. Elias felt his heartbeat slow, then quicken, then slow again, like it couldn't decide how to react. He dismounted, boots crunching the frozen ground, and walked closer. It was a girl, a young girl. Her dark hair hung like a curtain, swaying slightly in the low breeze. A rope bit into the branch above her, and beneath her dangling feet, the earth was only barely disturbed, as if whoever had done this hadn't bothered to hide their cruelty. A piece of wood was tied against her chest. Words carved by a knife. "White man don't forgive." The message struck him as senseless at first, like a sentence broken off before truth could sharpen it. Then he felt a hot, shameful twist inside him. Whoever hung her had wanted someone like him to find her. Someone white. Someone who, to them, represented everything worth warning or cursing or indicting. God, no. His voice cracked into the cold. With trembling fingers, he reached for her shoulder, and flinched when it was warm. Warm. Alive. He grabbed her waist and lifted, taking her weight as he cut the rope with his pocketknife. They collapsed together, his knees hitting hard earth. She fell into him, limp but breathing, her pulse a faint flutter against his wrist. He laid her down gently, checking her throat. There was raw bruising, ugly, violent. She must have fought. She must have survived by nothing short of stubborn will. "Stay with me," he whispered, though he had no idea if she could hear him. "Please, stay." He got her onto Juniper, holding her steady with an awkward firmness, and walked beside the horse all the way back to his cabin. His breath burned his lungs, but the girl's shallow breaths frightened him more. Inside the cabin, he wrapped her in blankets and coaxed a fire to life. She stirred only once, when he poured warm water against her lips. Her eyes flickered, not fully open, not fully gone. Hours passed. The bruises around her neck deepened, but the rhythm of her breathing steadied. As dusk approached, she opened her eyes. They were the sharpest brown he had ever seen, refusing fear, refusing surrender. She stared at him without blinking. He sat beside the hearth, hat in his lap. "You're safe here, I swear it." Her eyes tracked the room, then returned to him. She tried to speak but winced in pain. "No," he said softly. "Don't push it." She narrowed her eyes. It wasn't suspicion. It was calculation, studying him the way a hawk studies a field. "Water," he offered. She nodded once, barely. When she could finally swallow, she rasped, "I'm Sandy Beacon." Her voice sounded like scorched grass. "Elias McCrae." She winced again and touched her neck. "You cut me down." "I did." Her gaze moved to the fire. "You didn't have to." "I know." A long silence grew between them, fragile, cautious. "Who did this to you?" he asked quietly. Her jaw clenched. "3 men. 2 white. 1 Mexican. They took from my people last spring. We fought back. They blamed me." He felt a cold anger rise, anger not for her story alone, but for the familiar shape of justice twisted into brutality. "And that sign?" he asked, nodding to where he'd tossed the wooden plank under the table. Her voice tightened. "A reminder. They wanted your people to feel hunted, like they feel. They want more killing." Elias rubbed a hand across his face. "I'm not any man's people. I keep to myself for a reason." Her eyes softened just slightly. "Why?" He didn't want to answer. But something about her presence, a strange steadiness, a truth that demanded truth, made him speak. "My wife died long ago," he said finally. "So did our son. Not from violence. Sickness. Hard winter took them both. I'm sorry." She said it so plainly, without pity, that Elias felt something shift in him, like grief loosening its grip a fraction. Sandy stayed 2 nights. Long enough for strength to return to her limbs, for her voice to regain steadiness. Elias made broth, awkwardly but with quiet dedication. She ate in small bites, watching the door and windows as if danger pressed on the other side. On the third morning, she asked for her moccasins. "You're not well enough to ride out alone," Elias said, crossing his arms. "I'm not staying here longer than needed." He studied her, not just her bruises, but the tension in her shoulders, the way she kept her hands close to her body as if ready to defend herself again. "Let me take you home," he offered. "I can ride halfway in." "No." Her refusal was sharp. "If you come, they'll think you're with me. You'll bring trouble to your door." "Trouble's already found my door." She considered this with a tilt of her head. "Still, this is my fight." Elias stepped closer, lowering his voice. "They almost killed you. And they might try again." Her eyes did not waver. "But I'm not living in fear of them." He admired her resolve. Feared for her. Respected her. "Then at least stay until tomorrow," he said. "Let the swelling go down." She hesitated, then nodded. That evening, she spoke more freely. She told him of her grandmother's stories, of learning to track and ride, of her brother who had gone missing 2 winters before. Elias listened with a quiet ache, realizing how long it had been since he had shared a room with another voice. Before bed, she looked around the small cabin. "You live alone so long," she murmured, "and still you saved me." Seemed the right thing to do. Not many choose what is right over what is safe. He swallowed. "I didn't save you expecting thanks." "I know," she said softly. "That's why I thank you." The next morning felt almost gentle, the sky warming to a pale blue. Sandy gathered her things, a small pouch Elias hadn't even noticed before, and prepared to leave. Before she mounted Juniper, she paused and touched the horse's neck. "She's beautiful. She likes you," Elias said. "More than she likes me." Sandy smiled for the first time, a small curve, fleeting but real. He suddenly felt the urge to say something, anything, to keep her from riding off into danger. But words tangled in his throat. Sandy looked at him with clear recognition. "You think they'll come after me again?" "Yes. And you think you'll regret letting me go?" He exhaled. "Yes." She nodded. "Then listen." Her voice steadied, fierce but calm. "I am not what they think I am. I am not prey. And I cannot let fear write my life." He admired her strength more than he could admit. But when she turned to ride away, a gut-deep dread flooded him. Something felt wrong. Something unfinished. He took a step forward. "Sandy." But she was already riding, dust rising behind her. Before midday, Elias spotted the first trail sign, a boot print near the creek, too fresh to ignore. Then 2 more, heading west. He felt the old instinct, the one he'd buried since the army years, rising in him like a ghost stretching awake. He unsaddled Juniper quickly, strapped his rifle across his back, and began tracking the prints. He wasn't even certain he was doing the right thing. But the thought of those men finding her again, alone, weakened, gnawed at him until doubt collapsed under urgency. By late afternoon, he saw smoke rising from behind a rock ridge. Voices drifted up the slope, rough, laughing, careless in the way men get when they believe the world belongs to them. Elias's heart pounded. He crept forward until he saw them, 3 men, camped around a fire. And Sandy, tied to a post driven into the ground. She was conscious, face bruised again, but her eyes burned with the same furious defiance he'd seen that first morning. Elias's breath tightened. He took stock of the terrain, counted bullets, measured distance. The men were drunk. Good. But drunk men still shot straight enough when rage sobered them. Then one of the men grabbed Sandy's jaw. "White man didn't take the warning," he slurred. "Found you anyway, didn't he?" Sandy spat blood in his face. "He's more man than you." The man raised his hand to strike her. Elias stepped out of the shadows. "You touch her again," he said, "and that'll be the last thing you ever do." 3 heads snapped toward him. The man nearest the rifle reached for it too slowly. Elias fired once. The bullet struck the dirt beside the man's boot, sending him stumbling backward. "I'm not here to kill anybody," Elias said. "I'm here to take her and leave." "You ain't talkin'." Before the man finished, Sandy threw her weight backward, knocking the post down. One of the men lunged toward her, and Elias fired again, this time hitting the man's shoulder. Chaos ignited. The third man charged Elias with a knife. Elias sidestepped, grabbed the man's arm, and slammed him into the ground. A sharp pain tore across his ribs as the blade grazed him, but adrenaline kept him upright. Sanny, still half-tied, kicked the fallen rifle toward Elias. He caught it with one hand, aimed, and held the men frozen in place. "Let her go," Elias growled. "Now." The men hesitated, then backed away. Sanny tore the rope from her wrists and stood beside Elias, steady despite the tremble in her limbs. "We're leaving," she said. And together, they did. They walked 2 miles before Elias's strength began to waver. He pressed a hand to his ribs and staggered. Sanny caught his arm. "You're bleeding." "It's nothing. It's deep." She helped him sit beneath a juniper tree. The sky had turned orange with sunset, streaked with shadows. Elias struggled to breathe evenly. They won't follow us right away." "Two are hurt." "Yes." Sanny's voice softened. "Because you came." He looked at her, pain blurred by something warmer. "Couldn't let anything happen to you." Her expression shifted, surprise, gratitude, a quiet grief he didn't understand. "You shouldn't have come," she whispered. "But I'm glad you did." She bound his wound with strips torn from her shirt sleeve. Her hands were steady, gentle. When she finished, Elias leaned back against the tree, exhaustion pulling at him. "Sanny," he murmured, "I thought I'd lost everything worth protecting." She met his gaze, her own eyes shining with an emotion he couldn't name. "You haven't," she said. "Not anymore." He closed his eyes for a moment, letting her words settle. When he opened them again, she was sitting beside him, watching the horizon. "What now?" he asked. She took a long breath. "You come with me. To my people. For healing. For safety." He blinked at her, surprised. "You trust me enough for that." "I trust what you choose," she said simply. "And you chose to save me. Twice." The wind shifted, carrying the scent of distant rain. Elias nodded slowly. "Then I'll go." Sanny stood, offering her hand. He took it, letting her pull him up. Their fingers lingered, not in romance, but in recognition. Two people who had been alone too long. Two lives forced apart by history, reconnected by fate. They began walking toward the distant line of hills where her people lived, each step easing the ache of solitude that had once defined them both. Behind them, the world they'd escaped faded into darkness. Before them, the world ahead glimmered with something like hope. Quiet, unexpected, hard-won. And for the first time in years, Elias felt the weight in his chest lift, not because pain had vanished, but because he no longer carried it alone. They walked on together, the night wind circling around them like a promise, and neither looked back.